So thanks for being here today. Today is Thursday, March 4th, 12 p.m. I'm Judy Stewart. I'm a career counselor on the Stanford campus. And today we are going to be talking about a very popular subject that many of you share with us, and that is the exciting news of when you have an offer letter. And I know that sometimes this can be new for you, for all of us. There's lots of different parts to it. I'm going to hopefully just go through the different pieces. Feel free to ask questions at the end. And the other thing is, at the end of the seminar, I'm also going to post a link to a very easy to understand article called The Anatomy of a Job Offer. So without further ado, I'm going to start sharing my screen with you. And okay, hang on one second. Okay, great. You can see that? Yes? Okay, wonderful. Thanks. So anyway, we're just going to talk through the details of the components of a job offer, verbal and letter. But specifically, we're really going to focus on when you get the letter. Before I get to this, I just want to say one thing. There are companies big and small and startup and casual and Fortune 500. There's many different ways that you can get an offer letter. The bigger the company, sometimes the more formal, the smaller, the less detail. Okay, so if you get a letter and it doesn't have every single one of these components, don't worry about it. However, if you need to clarify one of these components in a letter, you can always ask a question and hopefully they can add it to their letter. So I'm going to get started and basically talk about the 10 elements of a job offer letter. Again, they are very different. They should have every one of these. Many of them do, many of them don't. So without further ado, some of them are very self-explanatory. It should have the job title and employment classification. So what is an employment classification? Many entry-level jobs are, an employment classification is exempt, meaning a salaried job, non-exempt, meaning an hourly paid job. So many entry-level jobs are non-exempt, meaning hourly paid. So you should have clarity on that when you join a company, only because if it is a company where you're working over 40 hours a week, you may be eligible for additional pay, and based upon your state, it's paid at straight time or time and a half. In other words, there's something called overtime pay when you are an hourly paid employee. So the first one is to understand the job title and your employment classification. Sometimes you go from an intern to a full-time job, and an intern may be eligible for overtime pay, and then when you go on staff, you're no longer eligible for that. So it's just a good idea to double check. The job description and the reporting structure. The job description, hopefully you have had by now. You have interviewed based on that. They may attach it to the offer letter, they may not, but you should always have a job description. And the reporting structure, meaning who is your supervisor? Sometimes it's more than one person. Sometimes it's one or two, or in small companies, sometimes you're reporting to a group. The point is you should know who you're reporting to, and that should be covered in the offer letter. The starting salary, meaning the base salary. This is another area where if you are hourly paid, it might say your annual salary, or it might say your hourly salary. So that's the way that you're going to see it in an offer letter, but it should mention your starting salary. Now, bonuses. Bonuses are one of the most confusing things in an offer letter. So I want to talk a little bit about that. first I want to talk a little bit about sign-on bonuses, which you may hear from your friends or other students or family members, etc. Um, Sign-on bonuses are somewhat common in very large companies, i.e., an investment bank, sometimes a Fortune 500 company. Sometimes the sign-on bonus is there to cover relocation needs, meaning that you have to find an apartment or sign a lease. There's quite a lot of expenses when you need to get situated somewhere. So they may call it a relocation bonus, something like that. A sign-on bonus is typically given to you at the beginning of your employment, typically within the first, either be right away or within 3 months. And it's a one-time bonus. So you won't see a sign-on more than once. A performance bonus is for companies that when you're in a bonus eligible category, a performance bonus can be based on lots of different criteria, and the company should outline what the criteria is, as well as what you may be expecting, and don't be shy to ask that. So if you get an offer letter and it says you're eligible for a bonus, it's okay to ask, what are the parameters? It might be a dollar amount that you can be eligible for. It might be a percentage amount. Performance bonus criteria can be based on many things. Every company defines it differently. It can be based on your particular goals and objectives, your personal goals. It can be based on the company, how they met their sales plan, whether they achieved it, whether they underachieved it, whether they overachieved it. So the point is, it can be complicated, and it's perfectly fine, because when I see offer letters that include performance bonuses, they're not always as descriptive as we'd like them to be. So it is perfectly fine to question it, and it's even better once they answer the question to get that in the offer letter. So if they say that it's up to 10%, it's very nice to ask if they can put it into the offer letter. One thing I want to say about bonuses in general, so that you're not confused or surprised or disappointed when this happens, bonuses are taxed at a way higher rate than your regular salary. So I haven't checked it recently. The last time I checked, it could actually be up to 48%, 46 or 48% that bonuses are taxed at that rate. So hypothetically, if you get a $5,000 bonus, you may only see, give or take, $28,000 of that. Don't faint when that happens. That is because they're taxed at a higher rate. You may get some of that back when you file your taxes, depending upon your situation. But bonuses are taxed at a higher rate. The offer letter should have a start date. And this is something that can be a little bit flexible when we talk about what you can negotiate, what you can't. Sometimes, every employer, unless it's a very formal program, again, getting back to the investment banks, they have a date when everybody starts together. And they may give you an offer letter up to a year before you start. So there's not a lot of negotiating you're going to do with that date. And they start everybody as a cohort with orientation happening, etc. However, if you get a regular offer from a regular company, they always want you yesterday. So keep in mind that if they say, they want you in 2 weeks or whatever, there usually is some flexibility on that one. Many, many times students are apprehensive about asking, but sometimes students say, I've just graduated, I'd like to take a little time off, I'm going on a vacation with my family or something. And that reminds me of one other thing, which I'm going to cover later. If you have a pre-arranged vacation, airline ticket, cruise booked, whatever it is, please state that right up front. Most employers are very flexible about that if it's prearranged, but they don't want to hear about it later on. They want to hear about it up front at the beginning, and I'm sure that they'll be very flexible with that. So start date should be in your offer letter. Okay, another fairly confusing thing in an offer letter are the benefits. The benefits are as different as every company. So basically they fall into two overall categories, and that is health benefits, meaning medical, dental, prescription drug, optical, if the company has it. There's all sorts of different benefits that a company might have. I'm sure that I'm missing some. Retirement benefits, and I know that's crazy to think of retirement when you're just out of college. However, it is a really important benefit, and you will see things like a mention of 401k or 403b or a pension plan or something like that. What you want to look at in those is it's very nice if you are with a company who does some sort of a match, meaning you put in $10 and they put in $5 or something like that, that they match part of, if not all, of what you're putting in. So lots of details about that. That should be in the offer letter as well. Paid time off. So this can be vacation, sick days, paid holidays, personal days. For those of you who work in certain locations, I worked in Manhattan my whole career. There was something called Summer Fridays, which became a very big thing in New York City. And if we ever go back to the office, may still be a big thing. But some companies offer perhaps a half a day in the summer on Fridays. Some companies are very flexible. They say that you can take 5 full Fridays off during the summer or 10 half days. There's lots of different ways that that companies do that. So usually in an offer letter, there might be something about paid time off, or it might refer you to an employee guide. But the point is, you have every right to ask about that because sometimes they forget to attach the employee guide. So don't be afraid, or don't think that you can't ask about that, because that is an important benefit. Work location. Okay, work locations have certainly changed, but now there are remote work locations. If a company has different facilities, are you going to be working, just talk about Manhattan because I know streets, are you going to be working Midtown? Are you going to be working down in Soho? Are you going to be working in the Flatiron office, wherever the offices are? So you should get clarity and know where you're working. If you are working remotely, we had a call yesterday with recruiters of 2 big companies. It is perfectly okay to ask what the company provides in terms of equipment. So it can be a laptop, it can be some sort of office setup, monitors, 1 or 2 monitors, that kind of thing. So if you're going to be remote, companies generally handle it 2 different ways. They will either get you the equipment, or they will give you a stipend and tell you you can spend up to X amount of dollars on remote office equipment. So if you are going to be remote, or even remote part-time, it's okay to ask what the company provides. Other perks. Okay, other perks can go on for days, and they are as different as companies. Other perks that you should be aware of, if these are particularly important to you, is companies offer disability, life insurance. Some companies offer pet insurance. Some companies offer a transit card for you to either park or take mass transportation. So there's a tax benefit to signing up for that with a company. Some companies offer cell phones if it is applicable for your work. Tuition reimbursement. Do you want to go for an MBA or a different or some more classes or certifications? Does the company offer tuition reimbursement? This is generally an employee guide. You're not going to see this in the content of an offer letter, but especially for the bigger companies, this is why it's very nice if they attach that employee guide. And then there are, you know, one-off types of perks depending upon the company. Some startup companies offer lunches or special days when they cater things. If a company offers lunches, and some of the startups do actually, every day, that actually adds up to a lot. So think about it when you're deciding upon your offer. Okay, number 10, signed agreements. There are some standard signed agreements, especially with product companies, and that can be, and banks, large banks and other companies, Fortune 500 companies. And that can be confidentiality agreement, non-disclosure, meaning that you're not going to talk to anybody about projects or clients or anything like that you have access to. The other thing is some companies will also ask for something called a non-compete agreement. Non-compete means that if and when you leave the company and go to a competitor, there's certain rules and regulations, a kind of sticky rules and regulations about whether you can go and whether they're going to keep you from going, etc. And based upon where you're working, some states will not allow a non-compete. California is one of them. There may be other states, but many of them will allow a non-compete. So these are the 10 elements of most job offer letters. However, it's the main reason why we tell you, please take a deep breath and take some time to go through the offer letter and to understand it, because as you can see, there's lots of different things. Okay, I'm just going to go through this really quick. Always express appreciation when you get an offer letter, whether or not you are juggling different companies, whether or not you're going to accept this one. Just always express appreciation and give yourself a pat on the back, because it's really something to get to that offer letter stage. So express appreciation. Offer letters, this is about timing. Offer letters need time and consideration to review the details that I just mentioned in the other slide. And to get together your questions, ask them if there are any terms that you want to negotiate. Maybe it's salary, maybe it's start date, maybe it's bonus, maybe it's a prearranged vacation. Take the time to do that. Please don't accept on the spot. The company is not expecting you to accept on the spot, and you really want to digest what's in that offer letter. A reasonable time period is anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. Sometimes you will see an offer letter that tells you a date that they want you to get back to them by. Usually the more formal companies will say, we want to hear from you by X date, which is usually a few weeks out. So as I said, that is sometimes mentioned in a formal offer letter, more formal. As I said, please don't feel pressure to accept on the spot. It's never expected. Any offer that requires relocation is going to have more details, including, is the company covering it? What are they covering? What are the details? And it will usually require a longer lead time, because you have to pack up and move and find an apartment and break a lease and sign a lease. So there are more details. So it usually does take longer. And anything that you ask a company in a negotiation, please don't be surprised if the recruiter or the person can't answer that on the spot. So what I said here is items that are negotiated may need time to be approved. So they may have to go to a compensation group. They may need to go to a relocation group. They may need to go to an insurance group if you have a specific question or a specific issue that needs them to check with somebody else. So don't get disappointed. They're just taking it down, they're writing a note, and they're going to get back to you. Now, most important is when you're in this phase and you haven't signed the offer letter yet and you're negotiating or clarifying, please don't celebrate yet. Please don't leave a position. Don't post on social media. Please wait until you have everything clarified. There's so many things that can happen before the offer letter is signed. So take a deep breath. We can celebrate once it's all signed, sealed, and delivered, but the time is not now to celebrate or post or even tell too many friends, because life happens and sometimes things change. Okay, last slide. How do you accept the job offer? A personal phone call is fine. If you can't reach the person, feel free to send an email. The actual signed offer letter, if they do want you to sign it, should be sent where they told you to send it. Maybe it's to a portal, maybe it's to an email. But at the point that you accept, all the details should be agreed upon and in the offer letter and to your satisfaction. We said this already, if you have any important prearranged time away, now is your time to say upfront. So nobody likes a new employee to start and then 2 weeks later say, oh, I had this trip to Greece and I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. Just do it up front. It will probably not be a problem, but upfront is when you should do it. Once you accept the job offer, many of the big companies will ask to do a background check and a drug screen. A background check is a criminal check. They will at that point be asking for your social security number. So, and it may say in the offer letter, your offer is contingent upon successfully going through the criminal and the drug screen. Okay, the drug screen, not a big deal unless you have drugs in your system. It's usually not anything to worry about. Okay, so the offer may be contingent upon you passing these. If you need to decline a job offer, please remember that your career journey is long. Don't burn a bridge. Make sure that you decline professionally, verbally. If somebody wants it in an email, that's fine, but it is probably a good idea just to speak to the person who made the offer to you. Although you're not taking the offer, you may be interested in this employer again, which is why we tell you to do it professionally. Be polite. You can say, I truly thank you for this offer, but have decided on whatever you say. I hope our paths cross again. Polite, polite, polite. You never know when you may see that employer again or want a job at their company. So I just stopped sharing my screen. And oh, the other thing that I didn't mention that we are going to put in the chat bar, it might be there already. Thank you, Tricia. Is there's a wonderful article called The Anatomy of a Job Offer. Excellent, simple, answers your questions. So we put it in the chat bar. Great. Is it okay to negotiate things like vacation or PTO with an employer? So that's a great question. So like everything else with an offer letter, the answer is sometimes it depends. Absolutely go for it, ask for it. Some of the bigger, more formal companies have to keep things consistent based upon employees at your level. So they will not let you take any more vacation days other than they have allotted. However, a smaller startup or something like that may be way more flexible. And sometimes an employer will say, no, I can't give you any more vacation days, but I will allow you to take those days unpaid or something like that. So yeah, always ask for it. The other thing that's in this article, by the way, there's lots of different ways that you can skin a cat if you want something. I just gave you an example for vacation and PTO. But for example, if it's salary, and if they can't negotiate, some smaller companies will, then you can say, well, when is your next review cycle? And can I be considered in 6 months rather than a year? So again, lots of different ways that you can do that. Thank you, Kathy, for asking that question, because I forgot that. Yes, very important. Sign-on bonuses. If you decide to leave a company, when you get a sign-on bonus, you have to sign an agreement, a special agreement for that sign-on bonus. That agreement, don't be surprised if it says to you that if you leave the company within a certain amount of time, and this is, companies have different periods of time, the general time could be 1 year. If you decide to voluntarily leave that company, that you have to pay back that bonus. And some of them have all different ways. Some of them you have to pay it back 100%. Some of them will do a prorated. If you leave in 6 months, you have to pay back half. So if you're signing an agreement about a sign-on bonus, and also if you are given a relocation allowance to relocate, because those can be expensive, you may also be asked to sign an agreement regarding your relocation costs if you leave within a certain period of time. Those are called clawback bonuses, meaning we're happy to give it to you, but if you leave us, we may claw that back. So generally those are given in an agreement. So before you sign that agreement, have somebody look at it, because that's a very, can be expensive, and you should know what you're signing. So that's a great question. Any other questions right now? What I didn't go into here, and I just thought it would get too complicated, but another whole category that I didn't cover is something called stock or equity or options, things like that. Many of you who are, I'm just going to mention this because Amazon is a big employer, and I don't know what they're doing recently. I haven't seen an offer letter in the last year, but when I saw one over a year ago, they were offering equity even to entry-level employees. And that gets very complicated. I didn't put it into this presentation. Happy to help you with that. But know that when somebody is giving you equity or stock, that there's generally what they call a vesting period, meaning don't get excited when you see that stock amount, because they may make you wait for a certain period of years before you can actually exercise that. So it's what we call a retention bonus. It is, they're giving it to you to make you enthusiastic about staying. So if you see equity, please have myself or somebody that is familiar. You may have people in your family that are familiar with that, and please have them look at that as well. So if no other questions right now, thank you very, very much. I'm happy to share this PowerPoint. There's that great article, which is similar. At 1 o'clock, we have another wonderful seminar today, which is called Finding Purpose in Your Career. So I hope that you can join us. And this is being recorded. So thanks a lot for all of you who have joined us today. And have a great afternoon. Okay, bye-bye.